So now I would like to introduce our presenters. Hi, Vijay and Mihir. It's so glad to see you again. And so this session is called Columbus Helper and SCOS, an open source one-stop shop for our city's data. And I would like to introduce both Vijay and Mihir. So Vijay, he's a technical manager for McGraw Hill Education, where he is responsible for delivering quality end-to-end technical solutions in EdTech. And by night, he's co-founder and organizer for a Civic tech community called Open Columbus and the event organizer for Startup Weekend Columbus. And Mihir, here with us too, is software engineer lead at Olive Inc. and is passionate about using his skills to help his community. As an organizer of both Open Columbus, which is a code for America Brigade, I forgot to mention that, and CantStopColumbus, Mihir helps his peers to learn new skills and connects them to experts in their field. So thank you very much, Mihir and Vijay, for being here with us. I'm gonna now give you the mic to you. Thank you so much.
Hello, well, good evening. And I know this is the last event of the day, and we make sure that everything is interesting, and we are creating an engaging presentation over here. Real quick, I want to make sure that you probably have covered the first two, but add some of the thoughts on what really you want to get out of it. If you have something from this talk related to open data platforms, right? The SCOS acronym that you heard basically means that it's an open data platform. So any questions around open data that you're interested in, civic tech projects, open source in general, drop some of those questions and we'll be happy to make sure that we touch on that. We plan to leave enough room for our Q&A, and we can definitely touch on those topics on there as well. So with that, let's just dive in. All right, so my pleasure to given a time to introduce our journey with you today. In addition to what Sophia already mentioned, I am a father of two kids. One is a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old boy. And life is pretty chaotic during these times. And you can always reach out to me on these email address and Twitter handle. And let me pass it over to Mihir to introduce himself, in addition to what.
Hey. Yeah, thanks, Vijay and Sophia for the introductions. I guess not really too much more to add to my introduction.
He's a cool guy. He's a really awesome guy.
I agree with that.
I do really, thank you guys. I do really have a passion to help others, use my skills to help them grow and network. And I do live in the heart of Columbus, so it's really nice to see the impact that the stuff we're going to talk about today has. So again, as Vijay has mentioned too, that's my email address and that's my Twitter handle. Feel free to reach out to me on either one. I'm happy to help in any way I can.
All right, so let's dive into the agenda real quick. So we will be introducing the civic tech group that we have founded here in Columbus, Ohio. We call it Open Columbus. We'll go about the meat of our meeting, the project Columbus Helper, which is this website where you can find the emergency services information, our journey on how we have used the open data platform, an amazing leap within our smart city existence. And then we go into some crunchy stuff, tech stack. We'll talk about some of these underlying implementations of what build these amazing systems, and also be humble about some of the challenges and learnings we got going through this extremely joyful journey. And we'll put some time in our bucket for question and answers. So before we dive in even further, engagement. So I would love, Mihir and I would love to have you go to the menti.com for a quick poll. You can use the code when you go there, or you can take out your camera and look, and you can scan this QR code to go to the website faster as well. So let me go back here real quick. All right, you can see some of the live results here. Nice, all right. That's a good number out here. 70%, nice. Keep going. Give a few more seconds for you. Probably give another 10 seconds, I guess, Mihir, for this question.
Looks like have it answered. 13 of us, so yeah, a little bit more time.
That's a pretty good breakout. 70 to, yeah, 30, 70, 30. Cool. All right. I am moving to the second question now. You now should have a second question on your screen. Nice. Oh, that's good. All right, so some of you are aware. Give a few more seconds here. For others who don't know this tool, I'm just using the free version, and it allows you to do this really real-time engagement with your audience. It's a pretty amazing tool. Do check it out, menti.com. All right, so I think we got a good idea of on those two questions. Nice. So with that, let me jump back to our presentation here. All right, so who is Open Columbus? Well, the way I introduce in a quick line is that we are a community-based civic tech group, right? A bunch of folks who came in and dedicated our mission to improving lives in Central Ohio. We look for open data and open source technologies to help out in different projects, and we educate our community as well along the way. We are also proud to be a Code for America, part of Code for America Brigade in Columbus, and which basically is empowering volunteers to work on the projects alongside, right, the community partners, local governments at times, and with the ever-growing engaged community here at Columbus, Ohio. And provide the freedom basically to connect, learn, and the most important thing is to innovate, right? So you can check us out on opencolumbus.com, and you can see our meetup group. And we've been doing this since 2018, June, I believe. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun knowing these people and then working along with them. This is what some of the faces looks like. And some of the meetings in past was with these individuals. Oh my gosh, I miss all of them. Feels like ages. But reality is, this is how we meet these days. So it's mainly we use Google platform, Google Meet, to do our meetings, and there's a lot of great stuff over there. With that, let me forward it to Mihir to talk about Code for America Brigade, if you're not aware.
Yeah, so that was great, Vijay. I just wanted to add one more piece to that as well. So we actually became a Code for America Brigade in the fall of 2019. Before that, we were actually a different group, it's still a civic tech group, but we were called SCODE. That was the abbreviation, which was Smart Columbus Open Data Enthusiasts. And that ties back to the SCOS that Vijay will talk about later. But we've the reason I bring that up is through that time before the fall of 2019, we realized that the principles and the things we're trying to do as a civic tech group lined up pretty closely with the Code for America Brigade. And so it was great to join them as a brigade and expand our network. And, you know, I think a lot of people here might be aware of what Code for America is, so I'm not going to go too much into detail there, but basically it was nice to collaborate with other cities and communities and see how work with government. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, is work with government to help improve our community. Yeah, so I guess, Vijay, if you want to go to the next slide, I will jump right into Columbus Helper.
Take it away.
Awesome. So Columbus Helper is a application we built specific problem stated here is there's community centers that face challenges where members come to the community centers to find social services, and the centers actually have printed out a list of all these services and send it and give it to the community member to take away and you know, do what they want. The problem with that is as soon as they print it, that information gets obsolete. Not all these centers stay open all the time. They close and relocate and open other places. There's still pop-ups. So it's hard to have as soon as the community member leaves that facility or with that paper, if they call in a week later, that center might not exist, or that location. So we really wanted to tackle this and use the Smart Columbus Open Data, the SCOS, to provide a more real-time version of this information and available anywhere. So that's where Columbus Helper comes in. It's a responsive web app to make this information more accessible. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about like the initial feature set we were looking at tackling. So the things we want to start with was actually, let's find those social services and let's get that data into the hands of the users. The residents want all that information and not just a paper snapshot of it, something that's more real time or more accurate. The other thing is too, we want to make it accessible. We want to make sure that this is something they can access not only at these community centers, but at home or on their mobile devices or so that.
I was wondering, Mihir, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
Next. Oh, am I?
A little bit, like not often, but yeah. I don't know, anything you can do about it.
Yeah, let me move.
You can do something about it. All right.
I can definitely do something about that. Okay. Is this better for you guys?
Yeah,
Yep.
works better.
Okay, good.
I'm just giving him a hard time. He just migrated to updating his network to mesh, which is supposed to be faster, right?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know where I cut off, but I'll start from the beginning of this one. So basically, the next feature we want to do is make this information accessible to them outside of just the community center. So like, they should be able to access this more real-time information when they're on the go, when they're at home, anywhere else that we can actually give it to them. So this was like, let's make it accessible for their computers. Let's make it accessible on their mobile devices, their tablets, their laptops, their phones, and all the above. So that was our next goal or feature we wanted to work on. The last one is location-based routing. We want to make sure that like once they have this information, how can they actually get to these physical locations? Like, let's see if we can help them navigate the transit and get there. So then I'll hand it off actually back to Vijay.
All right. So yeah, so if you're wondering, this website is live, by the way, so you can hit that right now with Columbus Helper, columbushelper.com, and columbushelper.org. And the journey started early 2019, where we, through help of some of the engaged community members, identified the need that, okay, something like this is actually needed. And further on, we looked into some of the existing data sets that we as a tech community can rely on in kind of, initially primarily just looking in the landscape. What kind of data sets are available? Where do we need to begin from? So that all was early 2019. We had the core team started working on it. We initially thought, yes, we need some subject matter experts. And we reached out to a community here in south side of the Columbus, which is not, which was the target area for something like this. And they had some, neighborhoods where people are really food insecure, and they come to the community center to get the information on such locations like food pantries, their shelter needs. And it just felt like a perfect partnership there to bring them on board as stakeholders and learn from what they are seeing day to day and what are their challenges in terms of the community center, and also see things from the side of the, from the vantage point of the neighbors of what challenges do they have. And we then started sort of doing the high-level technical solution design mid of the year as well. With the help of our partners, we were able to narrow down to some of the minimum viable features that we wanted to roll out with, and with excitement, we venture into the validation of our prototypes as well. We really went down there and talked to some of the people within the community center and got a lot of feedback to course correct some of our pilot features. And then we were lucky enough to do the kind of late pilot late last year, and a lot of feedback came in. And just on the time, I think COVID came in March, and we felt like the need is immediate, and we went with the final rollout early this year. And right now, the team is working on some of the enhancements, and we are also looking into partnering with some other community centers. But I will be honest that the progress on those two fronts are relatively very slow than we would like it to have faster, but that's the reality. So I was talking about validation, right? So this is a community project. We wanted the validation. We wanted to solve something that is a pressing need, right? And you want to solve something which is there. When you start getting into it, you see different things. You see, okay, maybe this is the right area, or no, maybe I'm confused. I don't know. I need to talk to the real people who are going through this. And that's where the validation is really important. So do we have the good understanding of the problems that these neighbors are going through? Also, who are these neighbors, right? I mean, there's so many open questions for us at that time. and what are their pain points, right? What are their alternatives right now to not having this app? You know, what did they do? Like Mihir said, with printed papers and stuff like that. Talking to partners with Reeb, the community center, gave us a lot of feedback on some of these initial prototypes. I was personally trying to find out along with the team is what are the key values that this project will produce, or this application will bring on the table, right? That's our core competitiveness. Well, yeah. And then, you know, how do we get those first pilot users, right? Always the critical piece in validation, right? Are we learning from what we are getting out of the feedback from these people? So that's all we're getting baked into sort of coming up with a rapid prototype of this application. And, you know, some of these pictures were captured during those moments with the team. I'll be honest, Mihir, I think that was one of the humbling experience that I had, really going in front of these people, showing them these working prototypes, and you know, they had glee in their eyes. You know, they were like, oh, I wish something like this appears right now and I can use it. And that was the strongest motivation for the boots on the ground on our side to dive in. We realized, yes, I think we're on the right track. Well, so let's do some demo, right? We've been talking for a while. So what we built, Mihir, let me stop sharing so you can take us to the application.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see. Oh, it's disabled for me.
Oh, am I still sharing?
Yeah, let me do you. Okay, I think you can share now.
We need some superpowers from Sophia. Passed on to you.
Sorry.
And I can see awesome faces now. Hey, I realize if you're sharing, you can't see the faces of individuals. All right.
Yeah. So can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so this is the basic interface of Columbus Helper. So we wanted to make this very easy to use, intuitive, and not really like overload the user with a bunch of, you know, categories. You know, just do some quick questions of what can we help you find today. And so based off of our validation that we did at the Reeb Center and talking to the community, we've actually narrowed it down to a few sources, a few categories. So for example, we could look at emergency foods and clothing disasters. Then it will ask you again for further clarification on what type of, you know, sources would you like. In this case, let's look for emergency food, and then it will ask you for your location, and then show you a map with, you know, all the markers for these locations. So basically, one of the first things you could do is click on one of these. And it will show you the basic information, the address. You can actually call the number. If I click on this, it will try FaceTiming it, so I won't click on it. But on a mobile device, this will actually, you know, call it from your phone. Also tells you the hours. So a lot of these services are available at odd hours. So as you can see here, this one is available for breakfast from 7:30 to 8:15, and then lunch from 11:30 to 12:15. So very short windows where you can actually go and get served breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then different hours again on Saturday and Sunday. If you find this information, and one thing is if it's not there anymore, you can actually report it as inactive, and this will basically send an email to the operating system that's actually housing all this data, so that way they are aware that there's some outdated information there. One other thing I wanted to point out, let's see if one of these has it. Okay. One of these will actually show, let me see if I can find one real quick. None of these. Well, okay. So one of these will actually show an icon in the bottom right. That's a handicap icon. And that's basically letting you know that it's accessible, like it's wheelchair accessible location. That was something we found valuable because as people that have these disabilities still need to get these services. So how can we make sure that when they get there, they actually can enter into the building and, you know, they didn't just make the trip for nothing. The last thing I want to actually showcase is, if you guys can see this, I clicked on the address and it takes you straight to Google Maps where it will, you can actually find the directions to it. So you can click on directions, choose your location. I'll just say Columbus, Ohio, and choose your different modes of transportation depending on you know, your preference. And then it will just use Google Maps to get you there. Instead of building this out into our own application, we decided to use an existing tool out there. Google Maps is a great tool to use. So that is why we decided to go that approach. It made it faster for us to get this to the market versus building it in our own Maps application. And I think that is all. So I will hand it back to Vijay.
All right, a couple of things. Unmute myself and go back to share. Oh boy. Here. And one moment, please. How? Right. Having some. Oh boy. I just want this to come up. All right, share. Desktop to. All right. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
All right. So yeah, so let's talk about data. I think this is you know, the application or any, you know, I think that this is probably what's going in all of your mind is, you know, yeah, all the application side is, you know, easy. Let's talk about the meat of it. So, but before I jump into too deep in how did we, you know, the SCOS, the Smart Columbus operating system that you saw as a title of this talk, this, you know, it's basically a open data platform, right? And the city developed that. City of Columbus, it's there. It's, you know, we are riding on shoulders of Goliath, right? But even like you have to understand a little bit before what happened, then diving right into Smart Columbus operating system, which I will in detail. But I just wanted to quickly talk about and touch on, there was a lot before that went into the thoughts. You know, the city has the vision, a particular mission, and they wanted to have some tangible outcomes that you're looking at the screen at this point of time. That basically is the inception and the core of how this central piece of data, open data platform came in from, right? It's that vision of our leaders in the city that really made it possible, which is, you know, basically to help every resident and impact their lives to the best, right? Through this technology that we can gather together. You know, and there were a lot of tracks, right? Like safety, mobility, opportunity, and environment. And I'll go in next slide a little bit deeper on that. But that's what the guiding principles were, that basically asked City of Columbus to participate in the smart city challenge that Department of Transportation was throwing. And 78 of the cities in United States applied, and Columbus won, right? And there were a lot of reasons why, and that's what I'm trying to stress on: the vision, the mission. That's all went into defining to get to that defining moment where we were able to win. So what did we win, right? So we had 40 million in cash over the period of 4 years that was promised to be given back in 2016 over to the City of Columbus to develop a solution like further, which we'll talk about. We got additional 10 million from Paul GL in philanthropy. And, money is all good, but again, going back to the heart of the mission, with this funding, Columbus really intended to address the most pressing community-centric transportation problems. And they wanted to integrate an ecosystem of really advanced and innovative technologies, applications, and bring them together to bridge the, I call it socio-technical gap, right? And meet the needs of residents of all ages, really, and of all walks of life, right? And this was really pivotal to that. And that kind of was the inception of this data platform, right? And we wanted this system, it's named operating system, which is kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's the data platform, it's the naming, that's all optics. But what basically this is about at the core is the exchange for local data, right? We created an exchange, a marketplace, open marketplace, in fact, where, yeah, you can get this data easily. But so what, right? The real question is, what values we will be able to create by leveraging this transformational data, right? And what potentials does that lie, right? So simply put, the operating system or the platform is designed, right, and built to collect data from variety of inputs: public, private, nonprofit, education-based, to contribute their data sets, right? And these inputs may come from any system, right? Like it's open, right? Like we are all taking different devices with us, and it can stream from anywhere, in other words, and from different kind of people, different kind of personas using the operating system. So that's pretty open. All of which are a critical part, though, in building this ecosystem of a data critical system, right? Which eventually should, again, and must help with the innovation, right? So that's the background, right? That's what needed in the inception of this system. But how? How? So okay, sure, all good, great words, good mission, but how would you actually do it? So that was also pretty simple, by ingesting, visualizing, and sharing open, secure data, right? You can see I breezed very fast on secure. The operating system is designed to equip public sector firms, private sector innovators to use data to solve some of the problems that are not being solved before. And all of this is, you can check about all of that on the Smart Columbus website, which is smart.columbus.gov, and you can look at the project in detail. But then again, I keep going back to the why, and that's critical piece that are missing in other cities, and I think Columbus got it right. And building such a system, what was the growing, opportunity cost? There was a growing opportunity cost when this is not there, right? What value we might create by such an exchange, right? These are the questions that get asked critically. So I think it all boils down to this slide, right? It's that why, right? Eventually the impact, right? So you want to improve the quality of life, great points over here, and you want to see that economic growth, right? Give people the fighting chance, and that's what it boils down to in my opinion, right? And I'm just a resident of Columbus who is using this data, and I know the vision and mission is much clearer in some of people's mind who were involved in day-to-day in bringing this to life. But this is my take, and I definitely missed some of the points there behind the why. But let me quickly jump into how the integration works, right? So that's something that you must be wondering. So yeah, I mean, it's a data lake, right? It's scalable, it's secure, of course. That PII, I want to make sure that all that is redirected or is safe to use. What kind of data environment is this going to be? Can I do analysis with that data? So all and from research, of course, that's another aspect that we wanted to have being baked into this. Are the core heart of this system, right? And this is how, right? This is exactly how the smart Columbus solution can really become reality. The operating system is just a platform, right? Yes, it's designed on big data. There's machine learning, there's artificial intelligence aspects, and you can do high fidelity analytics with some of that data. But core in summary, I do want to remember, I want you to remember this, that it will capture, what it will do is it will capture the data and provide access for aggregating it, fusing it, and then eventually consuming it by anyone, right? So what does it look like? So this is the website, right? And this is where I'll do a little bit of improvisation. I would really want to go and show you the site. But before I do that, just quick numbers. So the city was able to manage, as of today, 3,000 data sets in that system. 7 counties within Ohio participated, some very populated county like Franklin. 42 plus organizations provided their data to the system. There are countless filters. If you go to that website, you can see and filter that data. So discovery is really important aspect. And then there are 17 active projects, right? May not be active right now. Some might not be. This data is maybe a little bit old on the number, but many projects came out from this, which is actively tracked. And you can get all that information from the Smart Columbus website. So let me quickly, before I go forward, actually, let me just show the site here. So you can go to Smart Columbus operating system, the smartcolumbusos.com. I hope you can still see my screen. Yay, nay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this is the site. You can see different data sets. There are, sort of to make the discovery happen, there are, abstracted sort of interests, mobility, parking, environment, energy. You can see some of the data in action. There's streaming. I'm not going to go deep into it, but there's a lot of great stuff here. But you can go to explore data. And this is where you can see that's definitely my internet. All right. Come on, demo gods. Okay, that's interesting. Let me try in incognito. So anyway, you can click on that and it should show data sets. Yeah, they are. All right. And yeah, you can see these are the keywords that I was talking about. There's a huge list. You can filter some of them, and there are, you can limit them by organizations. All the organizations, 47 of them listed here. Yeah, a great place. It's a great place. And I'll jump in a little bit, or maybe while I'm here, let me just show some of the great things there. I know that I had it in the slides further down, but I just want to show a couple of features here while I'm here in quick a minute. So like if I click on Handsome Central Ohio, this is the food pantry data that we are using for our Columbus Helper application. And if you go in there, you can see different, so these are the API accessibility information. You can actually call them. There's a simple get that's been given, and with these filters, you can get that data. And you can use any HTTP client like Postman or anything to hit these queries, and you can actually play around. Or you can actually just see the sample. You can download that, and then you can look at these different data rows here as well. What kind of data is this? So you have agency here, for example. What are their addresses? All that is available. And another pretty exciting thing in the data is if you go back and the guards cooperate with me. I might be pushing my luck here. Okay, it's usually not like that. All right.
Technology always betrays us when we need it the most.
Always works, you know. This is like never had this kind of issue there, but all right, there must be some things going on. So so visualization is another aspect, right? So you can query, you can filter. There are a lot of enhancements going on. There are real-time data sets are added. But let's say, you know, this is pretty amazing. If you're used to like data, I think many of you, almost all of you said, except few, that they are familiar with some sort of data platforms like data.gov or data.world or something like that. But yeah, you can click on, let's say, bridges. And let's pick up this bridge inventory. So some data sets are really geared towards, you can visualize them right within the platform itself. You don't have to like download or try with Power BI or Tableau. You can do it right in there. So let's say if this cooperate as well. So you can add, let's say I'll just take a tile map, and there's some latitude information, some longitude information. I'll just throw it there, and it plots right into the data set. And I can zoom in now. Oh, too much. All right, so you can see how you can plot that immediately within the data platform. And this is, one of the great features that this platform has. I don't think data.world or any other platform has this visualization. And this was pretty cool that the team was able to do that. Recently launched, I think, late last year, and it's really amazing. All right, so with that, let me go back to the presentation over here. All right, so how do you really scope, right? So I'm standing, let's say, back in 2016, and I have this giant task of building this sort of operating, this kind of data platform, open data platform again. So that, huge kudos. Again, I borrowed this slide from one of the presentation from the city team and the consultants that were engaged with them to build this system. And, as you can see, and again, these slides will be available to you if you want to go forward. There's a lot going on this, but, right here, you see some of the, so we won the challenge in 2016, but a lot being going on here, right, to define the scope, narrowing down to the vendor and all whatnot. And then in Q1, the target was to have the MVP of the Columbus operating system in front and being given to the community. And that was followed by some of the hackathons, and I have a dedicated slide of why. There's a huge why attached to that as well. A lot of data curation and data stories were created. You can check that one out. I missed that when I was there. I should have mentioned that. Here. Okay, so so there were some of that breakouts in Q3 in 2018 and Q4, and and this right here in 2019 Q2 was an amazing milestone, right? A lot of different data sets made it through. A lot of exciting features were added. And I was looking, particularly was very excited about some of these enhancements that are coming forward, like streaming data and some of the visualizations. And then the whole community was really waiting for something like this that happened in Q3, that the whole system was open source. I mean, they were figuring it out how and what are the best way to open source this platform. And going back to the guiding principle that we wanted other cities to not reinvent the wheel, right? They want that to be laid out so that other cities can just build this, take this platform and start putting in their data and start creating something similar, which took Columbus a couple of years to build. And and this became the operating system and the data sets probably near real time. Some of the data sets are near real time with our central agency for transportation here. The use of open source tools and architecture really helped in achieving that goal. It's always very critical in this timeline to make sure that flexibility is being maintained and scalability is being maintained in this architecture. And this is basically a backbone for many of the projects, right, which are very critical to Columbus, like connected electronic vehicle, common payment system for the multimodal trip, one application to pay all the expenses like your bus, your scooter, the last mile, first mile, and the last mile. That is the multimodal trip planning app, and event parking management, prenatal trip. I mean, all these applications are possible with this real-time data, streaming data that was added in the platform. So it was very exciting to see some of these projects coming into reality. All right. So with that, let me go back here. So I think I already covered these. I can jump out. I did this as well, And we talked about being open source, and you can go to github.com smart cities data to actually see this whole platform being open source for you. So bring it on to your city or talk to people who can realize it. You can build this. You can actually literally start building this on your own machine. There are instructions. I mean, it's kind of on a heavy side, but yeah, within hours, you can actually start this platform ground up as well. So I was talking about hackathon, but before that, I want to say something very important. Platform is one thing, right? But you need to engage your community. You need to make sure that organically people realize that there's a huge advantage for cities like Columbus, where their city has consolidated these many different data sets for them. Groups like Open Columbus. We don't have to now chase individual of these providers. We are lucky to have such a platform where we can go in and some standards have been maintained. It's API accessible, it's refreshed often. All these kind of things are being taken care by the platform, and all that inputs came from community feedback, right? And I feel like that was one of the critical pieces that I believe the team really got it right. And pivotal part to that was the hackathons that the team started doing right from the get-go, 2017, 18, to spread the awareness, right? And this is how our group was formed, to be honest. And really giving something for the community to start building on. Here's your data, and here are some seeded challenges, or you bring your own challenges. Let's get together for a weekend and just hack, right? And be able to with this platform, we as a community are able to now see different data sets and forge different partnership with the providers of the data sets via Smart Columbus team, which is an amazing feat. And then, this is not a solution for one community, right? These challenges should allow participation from different communities, and the hackathons were a great place for that, right? And also we were able to see the use case from different communities as well, because you can only think of certain use cases, but really the goal is when all of these community people come in and pitch their problems or their ideas. That's when you come in with some real tangible solutions based on the data. Data in itself is not going to solve a real issue. And yeah, and it's not representing just one community. So that's, I think, is very critical. All right, I've been awkwardly speaking a lot. I will switch gear here and pass it on to Mihir to talk about some of the underlying technologies that are powering this data.
Awesome, thanks, Vijay. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about, since Vijay, we just talked about the Smart Columbus Open Operating System. I'm going to go over the tech stack of that. One thing I want to note is Open Columbus is not actually involved in managing or architecting this tech stack, but I wanted to make sure you understood, all the moving pieces behind the scenes. Since it is open source and is something your city can actually, develop and implement in your communities. So this is again available on the Open GitHub page. Link down at the bottom, but this is the technical stack that is used to architect the SCOS. A lot of it's written in Elixir. There is a React.js interface, and then there's a lot of Apache Kafka. So there's different streams you can go through. So for data gathering and curation, there's a different path. If you can see in this top, they have to gather the data, they normalize it. And normalizing it really just means it follows a certain schema. Make sure that there's no PII in there, personable identifiable information. Then the part after that is the data is actually uploaded to data storage, and a profile is created. One thing I wanted to mention too is the cloud storage that this data is housed is actually, it can be any of those services. It could be AWS, it could be Azure, it could be Google, whichever one your group or community wants to use. As mentioned here, all this stuff is housed in Kubernetes and via clusters and pods there. And for the system administration side, there is an authorization behind it. So I believe they use Auth0 if you're interested in that. So your users have to authenticate before they can use some of the administrative sides. I will jump onto Columbus Helper next. Vijay, if you want the next slide. So this is a little bit simpler architecture, but it is basically the general architecture of Columbus Helper. We have a access point, which is really from any mobile device or any device, and really that hits our progressive web application called Columbus Helper UI, which is a React.js application. That actually has an API on the back end, which is a Node.js application, and that's actually what interacts with the SCOS. It's the one that aggregates this information. As Vijay mentioned, there's a lot of data there, and so what our API does is basically does joins on different data sets to aggregate this information and basically make it useful for our UI to display. So we actually join on multiple different data sets and then return that information to the UI. And our UI, again, right now currently has Google Maps as well. That's the map interface you saw. And all of this is in the cloud in GCP, Google Cloud Platform. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about, which would be like, how do we manage this project? How did we, work through all of this?
If I can drop one quick line there.
Yeah.
Again, all this data, all this code, sorry, is available on GitHub. And it's open source, so you can actually check them out and build it and run locally as well.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Vijay. I forgot to mention that one. And then, so the next thing is, this is actually, we each, if I'm not sure if people are aware, but you can create projects in GitHub, and then there's actually a Jira board or Trello board you can actually create where you can track issues, move them through. And so we actually use that feature to track progress and priorities and, see what state everything is in with our team. So yeah, you can go on to the next slide, EJ. So here's actually our cadence of meeting. So we actually meet as a group once a month. And during that time, we actually talk about, we talk about what tasks were remaining, what, get a progress update on our tasks, as well as, new members join us every month for our meeting. So it's onboarding the new members. And then we do a lot of our communication actually in our Slack workspace. If you're interested in joining, I encourage you guys to. We'll share it out on the chat after this. But we basically do follow this little diagram on the right where we initiate, like, onboard new people. We do planning to, like, integrate them in and make sure we have our priorities correct before we leave the meeting, and then execute. So we don't technically meet until the next month, but if there's an opportunity via the communication we have on Slack, if we need to actually have a working session, we're very open about it, and we regroup and either have a working session before the next monthly meeting, or we just meet up at the next monthly meeting and do this whole cycle again. Initiate new members, plan, what tasks we need to implement, what's the priorities, and then execute. So that's the essentially like our project management cycle. And again, we use that board I showed earlier to actually help keep us all on track. And then I think I'm handing it off to Vijay again for the marketing side.
All right. One thing I just remembered that what we have seen, we have other projects as well from Open Columbus. And I remember we were in this totally different project, Project Sidewalk. And I saw members of, Columbus Helper just sitting there and hanging out. They were just working. They were just coding right in there. So it's like people are just, before COVID, right? This is before March. And people just want to hang out. So that's kind of incepted in the idea that we might have something sort of like on a weekend or whatever it worked out, like a 3-hour or 4-hour working session that helps, keep moving things faster. And, marketing is hard. Let me start from there. And, I'm a person from technology background, and this is hard for me, but, we try to do as much we could, given the tools. Like we said, we have a Slack channel. We created a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page. This is our Slack channel looks like. This is our Facebook. This is our Twitter, and this is our LinkedIn. Now, combination of all four is basically targeted on making sure that the news gets out within our Columbus community, right? We have a pretty active community. There are a lot of things going on, even like within the civic tech space. And you gotta really make your case that why you need to get some of the attention of the brightest and smartest in the community. And we try our best, right? We try our best with whatever we could, but definitely there's a lot of areas of improvement. So, and some of the things that we were able to do that were these, and we were able to put one of our project on the Smart Columbus city's website as well, just to kind of promote some of these community-driven projects, right? I mean, that's one of the core pillar behind the operating system, is to engage the community on its own and create that kind of groundswell where people are engaged and reaching out to the platform developers and data providers with their questions. And simple print your swags, stickers, t-shirts, notepads, pens, they go a long way if you have the budget, and sponsorship from your local sponsors like we are so lucky to have. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing to be in Columbus and be able to just reach out to few individuals, and everybody wants to help you. Now again, many of these strategies were before pre-COVID era, but now it's being everything online. We don't need the space. We don't need the food providing from these food sponsorship from these sponsors. So it's a lot different now, but yeah, even like for online, there are some opportunities there as well. But we highly advise working with your local sponsors. All right, I think we're going into the most important part of this slide now. Mihir, you agree?
Yes, definitely agree. This is.
So this is a real picture from one of our sponsors, Olive, and I think that's their boardroom where this picture is, and it's just so profound that that the leaders have infused that kind of mentality, and with that it applies on us as well. What are the lessons learned that we had throughout our experience working with the open data platform in general in Civic tech, and that's what we want to bring in. Mihir, you want to go for the first one?
Sure. Yeah. So really the lessons learned was keeping developers engaged. Like early on, we actually did see a lot of turnover where we would get a developer, he'd be engaged for a month or two, and then start trailing off. How do we keep them engaged through the long term? So that was one thing we learned early on, as we kept onboarding new people, like the project management cycle I showed you. We were onboarding more and more, but then like we would lose the more experienced people as things in their life picked up. So that was one thing we learned, and having these like meetings that are not just once a month, making more of a reason why we're meeting, fleshing out clearer roadmap so they know they have work to do, making sure they understand the whole objective that we're trying to get through, making sure they are aware of the stakeholders we're talking to, making sure we're fully transparent on all that and making sure they're involved, as well as the impact we're having, right? Like I think the biggest thing we had was actually going to the REAP Center, like having the people actually building the app go on site and see how the actual users, how excited they are, like what the impact it's going to have, really helped keep the developers engaged and making really understand the value of the time that they're putting into this. I guess that goes probably straight to takeaways.
So I just wanted to jump in a little bit on lesson learned, right? So in true honesty, right? So if you go on our meetup page, I mean, we have around close to 950 plus members, right? And it's been grown over the period. We started in 2018, June timeframe, and we've been around for a while. But to be honest, like not even like 5% are like very, we only have like 5% or 10% active members, right? Who really care, who bought up to some of the missions of these projects that we're doing. So, it's seasonal. I was there on the talk Mihir and Mackenzie did on the first day of Code for All. And yeah, it's seasonal. People volunteer when they have time. Summers are even the harder when, everybody's busy with their life. But it's a different challenge as well as organizers, right? We need to come up with that why, right? We need to show them that, yeah, this matters, right? Like the impact is going to be that this person in south side of the Ohio or Columbus is going to get access to something that they never had before, and it's profoundly going to impact their life, the way they live. And you see, I mean that's worth spreading that and making sure that everybody's clear on that objective. takeaways, this is, even I'm guilty of not having frequent touch points. And I feel like Mihir, and sometimes even, most of the time, Mackenzie King, they are pretty amazing at doing these frequent touch points. And if I boil down this slide to one word, I would say having frequent touch points are the key. Keeping the project board clean. Yeah, we did see some issues where, people were engaged, they came in, but then when they went on the project board, they're like, can I pick this Jira or pick this task? And we're like, or this issue. And we're like, I'm not sure if that's the right one to do. So yeah, so there's some project management aspect that is involved, and make sure, as an organizer, you are not taking everything on your head. Delegate, right? I personally struggle with that. It's an art. I haven't mastered it yet, but I think Mihir is much better than me on that. But I struggle on that. And please make sure, if you're doing or leading one of these civic tech projects, make sure that at least we do our part right, so that when the time is ready and people are engaged, they have the right inventory of work. And again, you can't plan more than 1 or 2 months in advance, because things also changes rapidly. But do your homework before you ask someone else to come and help. Mihir, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, sure. Before I do, I also want to say on the other front, be upfront with your expectations. Make sure that your team is aware of what you expect of that, like, what's expected of them, and also of yourself, right? Make sure it's clear to them. It's like, please delegate your work. That is something we should do. But if you're not clear with those expectations, then all the work's going to come back to you, unfortunately.
Good one.
So I just want to make sure I point that out, because I've fallen into that pit hole a few times. But yeah, so stakeholders, this kind of falls back to like showing impact. We want to make sure, like, the key stakeholders, the key people that have, kind of like money in the game or sorts, like they're really passionate about this issue or area you're working on. Make sure you have continuous touch points with them. Make sure your team is aware of that, because you don't want to be the bottleneck between getting that like passion and contagious, like, the value add from these stakeholders and, onto your team. Make sure it's very contagious when you actually have these kind of meetings. Every time I leave one of those, I'm very excited about continuing working on this. So that's something we've tried to do, is make sure that, we don't be the bottleneck on those interactions. And again, same with beta testing, like get your application or product in front of users quickly and often. Like, it's engaging them early is great, at least a small subset of them, because then you can iterate and build features they actually care about and make sure you're going in the right direction. Again, that last one was pre-COVID. We haven't actually done this in the new virtual.
Yeah, you can do it on Zoom. You can do it on Zoom.
You can. Depending on the target audience you have. Yes, you can. Sure. But we have not, for Columbus Helpers, since we're impacting people that go to the community centers. Those haven't actually opened up quite yet.
They probably don't. Yeah.
So we haven't actually figured out how to tackle it in this virtual space yet.
I mean, many of them don't even have a computer or internet in their homes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that's the last one, and we have 15 minutes or so for questions.
Awesome, thanks. And I saw Freelan actually put a question.
Yeah. I'll read out real quick. So he was wondering, he's from Code for Puerto Rico. Hello. He's interested on how we structured open data partnership with local government, and where was the line drawn, and on what the brigade would do and what the city would do. And this is kind of, I was on the last talk as well on the previous day, and I kind of felt the similar question at that time from you. So I feel like, let me answer it in a way. I think the way Columbus, city of Columbus handled it was pretty amazing, right? So they write on, let me answer it in two ways, right? So one is, the platform itself, right? So they engaged the community by opening the doors and creating these technical working groups where you, as an expert on certain aspects, like let's say masking of PII, can plug into the operating system and help hash out some of those challenges. From the point of view of let's say project, right? So we are working on Columbus Helper. Yeah, I mean, cities should do something like that, but you know, the way I see is the pie is you know, we just grow the pie, right? Somebody else, and I think something with McKinsey last time I also mentioned in the talk is, you know, different people working on different things can think of a different solution than the other, and then let the best one win, right? But not every time it's a clean delineation. We were lucky to be able to partner with city, right? Because we had these members who were engaged in the city and wanted to engage the community, and we were their community side, right? So they were very interested in coming to our meetings. They were always there. If I remember, they were telling us what new happening, and they were always looking for our feedback, right? We were their first early adapters of their system. And I would kid you not, I mean, it was, you know, there was a contact us page, and I think we just swarmed with our questions. We probably overwhelmed them. You know, they have their own roadmap of features, which was, you know, crazy. And then on top of it, we had our questions and concerns that we've been adding. So it wasn't perfect, but it worked out somehow. Mihir, I'll let you add some there as well around the partnership and where to draw a line or what to develop.
Yeah, no, I mean, at least I guess I will say for our use case, because I think it was very unique. We were engaged with the Smart Columbus City. You know, that our whole group came out of a hackathon that was hosted by them. So we already had this like a partnership or you know, this relationship with them established. And then as our group started forming and meeting up outside of the hackathon, we encouraged them to attend, and they were eager to attend because we were their end users, as Vijay said. So building those kind of relationships with them is key. And then one thing we actually were trying to make sure we made clear was we are not the data, like we're not the ones that store the data. It was the operating system, and that's one thing that they wanted to own as well. Is they're the ones housing all the data, you know, and using it. So just making sure you're very upfront and transparent with you know, these government partners or relationships, that this is what we envision, how are the relationship going, and just making sure like you continually push for the, you know, keeping that relationship the way it is and having those conversations.
And please, you can unmute and push back if we are not answering the intent of the question, please. I stopped sharing, and so we can see each other now. All right. Yeah, it's an intimate setting. I would love you to push back if that's not answering your question.
It is. I'm just trying to figure out for Puerto Rico with maybe more mature brigades, how they push back, because a lot of the issues that I found is that when I try to engage with anything public sector, there's either fear around, all right, who are you? Or over eagerness in, oh, you're going to do everything for us. And just figuring out like exactly how to draw that line is at this point very important for me, just to not first become the custodian of that data, because I think I shouldn't be, and I don't want to, and also how not to overwhelm like the brigade I'm trying to push forward as to, you know, I'm trying to get people to laser focus on things and not think about, I don't know, spinning up a CCAN instance and like taking all this data and then, oh no, now I have $1,000 bill from Amazon.
AWS, right? And you know, make your small, you know, make your world small. Absolutely. You know, the quote from Navy, right? Like it's you don't have to yeah, do all, right? And we were lucky to have such an engaged partner with Citi who were ready to house that data. And that's why I was going into that why a little bit more than usual is they need to buy in, right? They as a city need to first buy in. That why this centralized hub of the data is important for the community. That I as a developer don't have bandwidth. You as a code for Puerto Rico don't have bandwidth to chase these data, to ask for, hey, are you keeping the standards? Can I query this reliably? Will it be the same after 6 months, right? I mean, yeah, these should be standard. You know, you should not be inventing the wheel. You should be building on top of it.
I'm gonna add to this here also. Freeland, one of the things that had worked for us in Mexico, in Codeando Mexico, is also try to look for like government champions, we call them. Like these people that are like these key elements. Well, at least in Mexico, it's very difficult to implement technology, and talking about open data, like it's very, very difficult here. Like the political situation doesn't make it much more like easier. So one of the things we do is we try to like find these government champions that we know that within their institutions, they're trying to push forward certain conversations, and also invite them to our events and like kind of have smoother conversations with them so they can from within the agency or institution, they can start pushing forward certain conversations to certain topics. And that has helped us a lot to kind of like smooth the landscape and for governments also not to feel very intimidated, because it can be hard. It can be hard to talk about open data, especially in context like ours, that the Latino context is also very, very complicated, and in terms of corruption, openness, transparency, and so on, it's like very particular. And so I think also finding like these government champions can also be a way to like start
Align them,
getting into these conversations, but also not to panic the agency and like kind of make them feel more comfortable. I think it's also in the fact that, well, at least here, they're not like technology is still a taboo. So it's like when they do talk about technology and open data, they automatically think like all the data is going to be published and everyone's going to be able to do everything and so on. So like those conversations are like baby steps, I think. And I had another question. How has it been the overall I don't know if reception is a word, but like how has the public and the citizens of Columbus reacted to this open data project? So like have they participated, or are you only seeing one like profile of people participating, or is something that it's been like wider? And I'm asking, for example, because when we talk about open data here, normally the kind of people who participate or who use our data are kind of like the same profile. Like there are no certain things about tech, and they are maybe journalists and so on. But like people in general, they're not so used to open data, and they're not so used to also access to it and get to know like how can you use it without having this technical and advanced knowledges. So I don't know how, like my question is more into how has it been the overall response from the people when we talk about open data in Columbus?
You have to take that, Mihir.
Sure. Yeah. So I think we do get a lot of there is a lot of the same profile like people that are engaged, like developers, but I think the one thing with the smart city we've done pretty well is there's actually been a lot more awareness and like companies that have advocated. You know, like Vijay mentioned, we have over I think 72 different private companies or private sectors that actually put data into the system, into the platform. So we're getting this hub of data, and it's appealing to not only developers, but it's appealing to data analysts. It's appealing to any entrepreneur really that has a vision of something they want to do with data. So with those smart city hackathons too, I think we saw a mixture of developers, data analysts, data business, but we also had like nonprofits actually come onto the table and talk about their, like the needs they had. The Mid-Ohio Food Bank is one of the central food bank areas here, actually went and gave a talk. And so I think because Columbus is in a unique spot when we had that grant and we had like the attention of the whole community that we started these initiatives. So we pulled in more than just a developer type person.
And I feel like, some good strategy, again, marketing is hard, right? Like letting people to change behavior to do something different than they're used to is hard. Now, but what I've seen something tactical, and I know Mackenzie's here and I keep, looking forward, for many of the strategic things that she does. And one tactically thing that, the team, Smart Columbus team was able to do was to go into these grassroots events, right? If it's School Hack Ohio, there is Smart Columbus team, and they are there with these printed use cases to seed some of the ideas, to tell them about the data sets. So it's hard, but they were at the right places at the right time. And I personally believe that at least people know. If I go on a street and I tell, hey, do you know about Smart Columbus? So these are two different things, Smart Columbus and Smart Columbus operating system, which is a platform. But at least people are aware of this overall, and I'm knocking down my table, its overall mission of what are we trying to do with Columbus. We are trying to make, something that is bigger than ourselves. We're trying to enable this change, which will apply on 1 million people or plus, right? That was 2018 census, but I think we are more than 1 million now, I believe, in Columbus. How it's going to impact all those lives. And I think they have the right idea. They are everywhere with these use cases. I still remember Mackenzie coming into one of our hackathon with these minted use cases in the morning. I don't know, she did a whole night, with some intern, and she came up with these like 20 use cases for helping out the community. This is just amazing. And it's amazing to have people like Mackenzie in the community to help us. They were the real bridge. Sorry, I increased the expectation here, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Vijay, and I didn't do it alone. I was a product owner of the operating system during some of the key stages that Vijay was talking about, and wanted to chime in, Froylan, particularly on your question, because I think that concept of getting the right partners to the table is the most challenging piece of this puzzle. So the idea of getting the public sector to the table, but in our case, we're obviously really fortunate to have this grant right at our doorstep that needed to be addressed. So props to the folks that took on the initiative to write that proposal. But we also have an interesting private sector initiative that's going, and I'll tell you a little bit about it, hoping that maybe there's something similar in your community. But it's called Columbus Partnership, and it's essentially a group of the CEOs of the largest corporations in our community. So it's almost like a small business chamber of commerce, but only for the large corporations. And these corporations want to ensure that there's strong economic development investment in our region, because they want big corporations to want to be here and they want the best talent to be here. So they understand that the smart city movement is important to our region from the perspective of transportation, as does US DOT. But they also see the value of open data in a way that, in a strategic lens, that maybe perhaps other cities and other leaders might not. So we were really fortunate there too. I would encourage you, if you haven't looked at Sunlight Foundation, to check them out. Like, I've definitely used them as a resource as we're building awareness. But the last 2 years, I would say one of my top priorities has been, how do you build awareness on the value of open data? And it's a really abstract concept that was not something that we had in our back pocket to start from. And then secondly is, how do you build value around the concept of open source technology? Because even some developers that are living and breathing really unique tech stacks, some of them just don't have experience with open source. So they don't know the value of what that means to contribute back to this bigger code base and see the value expand and grow. So how we leverage those like awareness and educational materials, that's a tough question, but I think having all of those resources in your back pocket for conversations is really critical. Like find out who's using the term open data in your community and go have coffee with them tomorrow, virtually at least, because they're going to be.
I'm sure you did that, Kenzie.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did that. You're not making it up.
Well, yeah, because that concept of open data, like they're just, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And we're still, as advanced as some of our conversations are, we're still finding some nonprofits come to us and say, hey, wait, what did you just build? You built Columbus Helper with data from the operating system. What does that mean? We have something similar with similar data, but yours is better, and you did it for free, like, and we just paid someone, an agency, to develop that same app. Like, I'm confused. What does open source mean? What does open data mean? And they're just swirling about trying to make sense of it all. So it's an ongoing educational experience, I think, on both sides to be able to tell that story and demonstrate the value.
I've seen a lot of fear around open data and what it means, and especially when it comes to, we work a lot. So a big difference with Code for Puerto Rico from other brigades is that we work more at the state level than at the city level for historical reasons. And at the state level, trying to talk to certain politicians about open data is really difficult. They get really sensitive when these topics come out, and the whole like relationship with different agencies. Like we have a statistics institute that has an open data portal that turned into 3, and they're all working at the same time, but nobody gives data to it. So that learning how others are approaching this, I'm trying to figure out that recipe into how do I even start to like say, no, hold your horses. Let's.
Another group that's worth looking at, because we're facing the same challenge that you're facing, like what happens next? How do we sustain this thing? Because the grant is going to run out, and great to see all these stakeholders at the table during the grant period, but what happens when there's no funding and you have to actually like write a check instead of receive one? And an organization we're looking to, and I strongly suggest you do too, is San Diego's Community Information Exchange. They have come to the table in their city and built out an open data platform with really key stakeholders really vested in that initiative. Beyond the public sector, most of them are nonprofit organizations that represent social service entities. So it might not be the fastest path is probably not going to be going to the city and saying, hey, you need to have open data. It might be a combination of the private sector seeing value in open data, because remember, like LinkedIn, most of the real estate apps, they've all like been built off of open data. So there's a really strong success story of leveraging open data to innovate an economic region or an industry area. So hopefully, like, you can find an ally in the private sector or in the nonprofit sector like they did in San Diego. But we're trying to figure this out too. Like we don't have that sustainability path clearly marked out just yet. We do know there's value there though. Yeah, I'll be curious to hear what you come up with. Hopefully we can stay in touch.
I am curious in what we will come up with too. At this point, it's, especially with Code for Puerto Rico, we just started up again. We've been around since 2014, but we're a couple of years. We were one of the first initial cohorts from the old Code for America Fellowship, 2013, 2014, around that area. and we kind of like disappeared, and now we're trying to resurface again. So a lot of the partnerships are gone. A lot of the institutional knowledge is gone. It's a new world and all that. Yeah, it does seem like a lifetime ago. If nobody else has a question, I have another question. Sophia can say.
Please go. Yeah.
I've been full of
go.
questions.
Actually, like it's our last session, so it's also fine if we take a bit of time.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
don't worry.
It's lunchtime here, so we're open.
Yeah, and at the
Okay,
end,
cool.
like this is important thing for us at the end, like to promote the exchange, and if this is gonna help you out to bring something more robust and to create something, stay as long as needed.
Cool. So a major, you mentioned marketing is hard. I agree. Marketing is like incredibly difficult. How do you all interact with non-technical people in a non-face-to-face way, especially without having all your data just everywhere? Like, I'm trying to focus everything in GitHub issues to help keep my developer community in one place and get input from the people we're trying to impact into the same place. That's not working, primarily because, well, you want to comment on an issue, you need an account. You need an account. People think you have to be a developer. It's another account they have to create, so that doesn't work. It's also public. They feel a bit intimidated, but then they message me on Twitter at 2 a.m. and it's like, okay. So how do you like get all that input into a place that's actually useful for you all?
Let me start that conversation again. I don't know if I have the answer in there, but but we struggle with that too, right? So the impression comes out as, oh, a bunch of geeks just trying to hack, and so I don't belong here. I don't even have sometimes people just walk in without computer, and that's okay, right? And yes, we do struggle with that. What I think multifacets, right? One is, as an organizer, you need to set that right tone, right? Like that monthly meeting where we're coming in, it's just show and tell. It's not at least the first hour is what teams have achieved, what the problem they are solving, where they are, and what kind of skill sets are they looking for. And most of the time, developers' skill sets are, yes, it's hard to retain them, but they're easy to find as well. And where we struggle are the people who can solve problem around use cases, right? Go chase something, project management, design, and testing. I mean, there's just like, in solving a problem, we need multiple hats. And I know I'm just looking at, we have Veronica who joined us as well today from Columbus, Ohio. She is our UI hat, right? I mean, she came in, moved to Columbus early this year, or late last year, I guess, sorry. And since then, she was not super technical, but at least, she was able to get that impression that we have opportunity for all different skill sets. And it's not easy to reflect that in every meeting, because in some meeting we end up talking gobbledygook and people like, what the heck? But in some meetings, it's like, yeah, this is just show and tell. These are the things that we're looking for to help with. Yes, there are challenges. Slack channel, people don't even know how to get on the Slack. So that's right. So, but we try to lower the barrier to entry, right? Create this QR code, self-invite them. Hey, do you know how to open Gmail, right? Or your Outlook, whatever that is. We make it easy for them, right? So there are ways. I mean, these as a technologist, right, a challenge for us as well. How can we lower that barrier to entry for these people who are not particularly interested in technology, but they are amazing problem solver that you want on their side, on your side? I don't know, Mihir. That was not the answer he was looking for, but but I tried.
Yeah, I will say one more thing. there's always going to be a barrier for people to, comment on issues or, whatever board you have, if it's in GitHub or if it's like issue tracking or if it's in Trello or anything else, there's going to be some authentication piece most likely we'll have to do. I know other brigades have also talked about GitHub being that barrier for non-developers. So I don't know. I don't think we have the perfect solution. I'm sure others have tried different approaches. But we, like Vijay said, we try to use that monthly meeting to help bridge that gap between, developers, and hopefully if they don't want to create an account, we at least can track their information. Like we can input their information, their feedback during that time. So it's just conversational with them.
Right. Just to jump in, we made everything on GitHub public. So even if you don't have an account, you can see our pages, you can see our project board. I mean, there's no private information there.
Yeah, same. What I've been doing is if I get a DM in Twitter, I just put a screenshot. Like, we received this from Twitter, and block off their name somehow or whatever, whatever that case may be. Okay. Yeah, that's
So no silver bullet, man.
It's helpful. Yeah, it's helpful, and I'm also happy that I'm not the crazy one that's just going through this.
We also started doing some lightweight sort of sessions. Hey, do you want a 30-minute of GitHub overview? Come on to our monthly meeting. So after first hour, when we go into breakout, I'll walk you through with data sets. A lot of people came to us asking for the data platform. And yeah, I mean, that was okay, right? Like we jumped in and some started asking, so how does the machine learning aspect work in this platform? And I'm like, I have no freaking clue, but I have a person I can connect you with.
Yeah.
Or there's a non-technical person, coming in and saying, how do I even look into this website? So we do that as well, but it just, are there enough participants who are willing to spend time educating the others? That's the learning aspect, one of the pillars that we started our group with. If you don't know, committing to GitHub, but if there's something you want to learn, there are people who will help you. We are lucky that there are a lot of boot camps here. So we get a lot of students. The interests are aligned. They want to learn something and we have ready things, but they don't stick long, right? The moment they find job, anyway.
There are also a couple weekend-oriented hackathons that we use as a feeder. So obviously Startup Weekend, I don't know if Startup Weekend is in your neck of the woods too, but also there's a newer organization in about 5 cities right now called Give Back Hack, and they've been an important feeder too. But the construct of having like developers, creatives, and hustlers or marketing people and business strategists, like those 3-day hackathons understand that it needs to be more than developers. So using them as a feeder has been helpful too. And then we've found, as we've partnered with CantStopColumbus, reaching out to individual agencies and saying, hey, we obviously are a group of developers and designers, but we could really use some project management support and some business analysts, and they are usually pretty eager to introduce us to their teams. And there was once a time when the big bottleneck for CantStopColumbus was project managers, but now we just have so many of them, we don't even know what to do. So, so the pendulum can swing both ways, I guess you could say.
Okay, thanks.
Just saw a comment from Veronica there.
Yeah, I can read that.
Yourself.
I can read that.
Okay,
well, hi, Veronica.
I can show myself there. Hold on.
I'm putting social pressure there.
Yeah.
There
All right. So this is a way to attract non-developers, and incidentally, I am now learning code, so it's definitely influenced me to start expanding. But I came in just purely as a graphic designer with possibly an interest in UX design. But I don't know if you've heard of Project Sidewalk. They've got Mexico City and Seattle and Washington, D.C., where they're mapping, and then Columbus, where they're mapping sidewalk for accessibility issues, wheelchair impediments. And there are a lot of local e-newsletters for Columbus on things to do with your time. And there was a nice article about how Open Columbus was hosting mapping parties about once a month, where pre-COVID, there would be pizza, everyone would just bring their laptops. Some people wouldn't bring their laptops because they thought we were actually physically walking the streets, but we were actually doing it virtually. And that was a lot of fun because that was a nice low bar to entry, because it's a very quickly understandable activity where you're just using Google Maps and highlighting problems. And so for someone who wasn't ready to look at code, it was a nice segue into being in Open Columbus, and everyone was really friendly. And then the other thing was going to a one-day hackathon, which was really exciting, because you could kind of advertise like, hey, I don't do this, but I do this. Who wants my help? And so I think having these very digestible short spurt activities for the non-highly technical was really useful. Having just we're not expecting anything of you, come play with us, see if there's something that you're excited about, and then just following up with them is how I got hooked into it.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that is, this is a shameless plug, but if you're interested in that, there's a Chris and Andy are actually having an event on Wednesday, on the summit, going over Project Sidewalk and the other project around accessibility.
On 22nd July. And fun. I think it's even later, right, Sophia? It's I think it's even later than this.
Sorry?
The talk on the mobility.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. No, Wednesday. Sorry.
It's 22nd. On Wednesday. Yeah, it's on the 22nd, and I'll tell you what time is it for you. Give me just 1 second.
Sorry, we didn't mean to cold call.
No, it's okay.
You can look
it's
up.
It's just that since we have like so much. Okay, so it's at your 1 p.m.
Right. That's what I thought is even further late. That's a fun project to start in DC, if not Roland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've got a mapping party coming up tomorrow night, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure we'd accept anyone outside of Columbus to help map Columbus, right? It would be a fun way to see how we interact. We thought, people have been saying that actually now that we've been doing it where we all share our screens, even if we go back to being in person, we'll probably still use a Zoom setup, because we found it's a lot easier to troubleshoot and help the new users identify the problems.
And it's a great way to look at the city. I wish I will be mapping Hawaii pretty soon. No, just kidding. It's a
really good way to get to know a city, even if you're not there. So definitely.
Yeah, we did something similar in 2015 with Old San Juan, where we mapped every single like building, business, church, like everything. It was a pretty cool event. I think they did it on OpenStreetMaps.
Nice. Yeah, that's the other project. Yep.
We had a pretty solid like mapping fanatics there for like whatever reason. And yeah, that was a pretty cool event. All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been super helpful to hear all these perspectives.
Thank you so much.
Big shout out for you, Sophia. Amazing job. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Yep. Thanks for everything, everybody.